Hey everybody, it's Joe from greenlightsound.com, and today we've got a look at a specific mixing technique that's employed by Andrew Scheps. And for those of you who don't know, Andrew Scheps relies on a lot of parallel processing in his mixing, and this specific technique is a vocal mixing trick that helps you get a vocal to cut through a very dense mix. I'm going to do two things today. First, use the tools that Andrew Scheps used to get this done, at least in the box, and then show you how you can achieve the same exact effect using stock plugins that you may have inside your DAW. It relies on 3 plugins in a row. The first one being a vintage Pultec EQ, driving a signal into an LA2A, and back into a Pultec again. So Pultec, LA2A, Pultec. If you don't have these exact plugins, that's okay. I'm using the IK Multimedia Pultec emulation and the Waves CLA2A, LA2A emulation. Andrew Scheps, when he does this, actually uses the UA Pultec, which I also have. I'm just using IKs in this case. And he does use the CLA2A to do this. Again, if you don't have these exact ones, it's okay. So the basic process works like this. With the first instance of the Pultec, we cut low end out. I put it on 100 Hertz and 3.8 attenuation or cut. That's not dB on a Pultec. It's actually less than that. That's a really wide shelf cut. I've got my bandwidth set all the way up at 10, so very, very wide. On the top end, we select 8K, boost 3.6. So cut the low end, boost the top end. That's all driving into an LA2A. And you can use any LA2A emulation you have as long as it has this knob right here. The knob, when you turn it fully counterclockwise and you set it on high frequency here, only compresses the top end above 1K, sort of like a multi-band compressor where any information below 1K is not being compressed, but the top end is. When you normally instantiate an LA2A with this knob and it's all the way on flat, the full signal is being compressed. But we want to just compress the top end, so you rotate it all the way to the left. This one by Waves obviously has this knob. The Universal Audio LA2As have this knob. Some emulations don't, so you want to make sure you have that if you're using an LA2A to do this trick. So after we drove that top end heavy signal into the LA2A, compressing the top end only, we go back into another Pultec, which brings the low end back in. Set it on 100 Hertz, we boost now 2.8 instead of cutting. Full bandwidth again, up to 10. The attenuation selector here is different than the high frequency boost. You want to kind of view these together. The boost and the high frequency go together. The cut and this little knob go together. So we're cutting 10 because we boosted 8 and there's not an 8 on this selector. But again, we're cutting at 1.8. Again, it's not dB, but cutting that top end. So the whole process again works like this. Cut low end, boost top end. Drive it into a compressor where that compressor only compresses the top end. And then bring some of that low end back in and cut some of that harshness you have from cutting that or from compressing that top end so much. And what the effect of this is that you get a signal that cuts through a really dense mix. So I'm going to play a bit of this mix for you. And it's going to be kind of loud, so there's a warning. So here's the mix without parallel processing. So you can hear, I compressed the vocal, I have the vocal at a pretty healthy level. I could boost it a little bit more, but it's not cutting through at all. It's kind of buried in the density of the instruments in the mix. So what I'm gonna do now is take this fader right here. I'm gonna ride that fader up a little bit. And as I ride that fader up, you'll hear the clarity of the vocal start to come through as I start to bring up this parallel process. Bring it down. Back up. So you can see I'm getting about 3 dB of gain reduction max, and that's fine, and it helps that vocal cut through. I kind of pushed it a little bit farther than I normally would. But that's exactly how you can do it with these plugins. Now, if you don't want to use these plugins, you can do something similar with stock plugins. So I have 3 more plugins on the same vocal channel here. These are the stock Studio One plugins. I've got the Pro EQ, the Studio One compressor, and back to another EQ instance. So this does the same exact thing as the Pultec into the LA2A, into the Pultec again. And the way I kind of match these curves in the Pultec is by going into Plugin Doctor, bringing up the Pultec, putting it on the settings, and you can see the EQ curve that results. So that cut we did in the first instance of the Pultec was a huge shelf that went all the way up to 2K because the bandwidth was so wide, and there's that top end boost right there. For the compressor, I did internal sidechain, so it's only compressing the information above 1K. So you have to have a compressor, a stock compressor that can do that. I set the ratio to 4:1 because an LA2A is about a 4:1 ratio. There's a fixed attack of 10 milliseconds on an LA2A. Put that in there. The release is tricky to dial in because an LA2A kind of has a variable release depending upon the program material. So I fiddled with it. I got about 120 milliseconds. A soft knee compression too, not a hard knee compression. And I had to set the threshold pretty low to get any gain reduction out of that. And that goes into the second EQ, which is that low shelf boosting now, bringing back that signal we cut out here and cutting a bit of that top end. You can take a look at the settings I have for the EQ modules if you want to get really detailed about how I match this. That's how you can achieve the same effect with stock plugins. So again, I'll do the same thing. I'll play the mix without any parallel processing, and I'll drive this one up with the fader, and you can hear the stock plugins achieving the same cut-through vocal Andrew Scheps effect. The settings I had here made me have to boost this a little bit more to achieve the same effect, but it kind of gets you in the same ballpark. So there's how you can achieve the same Andrew Scheps parallel process without having to use expensive third-party plugins. If you have any questions about this technique or anything else, let me know in the comment section down below. Don't forget to subscribe if you haven't done so already, and I'll see you in the next one.